What happens when Hollywood royalty meets actual royalty, and the conversation spirals into uncharted territory? Live, on one of television's most beloved talk shows. Tonight, we're diving into a jaw-dropping confrontation that had global audiences divided, and left one of Britain's most seasoned hosts doing something he'd never done in decades of television. The red chair spun, the crowd buzzed, the cameras rolled for what was supposed to be a routine promotional stop. But the moment the script went off, course history was made. Before we break down the shocking turn this interview took, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments, was this a meltdown or a moment of truth? It was a typical evening at BBC Studios. Graham Norton, in his element, welcomed viewers with his signature warmth. The red sofa had hosted Hollywood legends, chart-topping stars, and world leaders. But tonight's guest brought something different. Please welcome the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. The audience erupted. Meghan stepped onto the stage in a designer dress that shimmered under the lights. She waved with practiced ease, her signature smile lighting up the room as she settled onto the iconic red sofa. "Meghan, wonderful to have you," Graham greeted her, offering the customary air kisses. "How's it feel being back in the entertainment world?" "It's been a journey," Meghan said, gracefully. "I've missed the creative energy, the collaborative spirit of storytelling." The interview began as expected. Talk of upcoming projects, her shift from royalty back to Hollywood, life under the microscope. Graham was guiding gently. "Until, I have to ask," he said, leaning in slightly. "Do you ever miss the formality, the protocol, of royal life?" A flicker passed across Meghan's face. Barely perceptible, but Graham saw it. He was trained to notice. "That's an interesting question," she replied, tone pleasant but now edged with something sharper. "I think people romanticize that life. But reality, it's very different," Graham nodded. "Still, surely there were traditions you found meaningful. Beautiful moments," Meghan echoed, and something shifted. "Is it beautiful when you're told not to speak unless spoken to? When your every move is dissected and judged?" The audience quieted. The tension was real now. "Any major life change comes with challenges," Graham offered, carefully. "You've always handled pressure with such grace." "Grace," Meghan's voice tightened. "Do you know what it costs to maintain grace when you're being systematically undermined? When the institution you serve doesn't serve you?" Graham's brows lifted. This wasn't the path he'd expected. "Perhaps we could focus on your current work," he said, voice steady but cautious. "My future plans?" Meghan's voice rose. Not yelling, but firm, unfiltered. "They include telling the truth people are so desperate to suppress." Now Graham looked uneasy. The audience sensed it too. "This show is about giving guests a platform to share. In a positive light." Meghan cut in, suddenly standing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "There's nothing positive about being gaslit by an entire institution. About being made to question your sanity just for surviving." "Please, Meghan," Graham said, rising slowly. "Let's take a moment. Let's redirect." But Meghan was past redirection. "You know what, Graham? I came here tonight hoping for a normal conversation, hoping to move forward. But every question, every angle, pulls me back to them, to the ones who never protected me, who never stood up for me." The cameras kept rolling. The silence was deafening. "I won't pretend it was all wonderful," she said, her voice full now with years of suppressed emotion. "I won't smile and deliver the sanitized version that makes people feel safe. Because I wasn't safe. And people need to know that." Graham rose to meet her eye. For the first time, visibly rattled, his producer instincts were kicking in. But it was too late. The moment had already gone viral. "Meghan, I think we need to take a quick break," Graham said, his voice even but tight. "Let's pause and regroup." Meghan let out a short, sharp laugh, one with no trace of humor. "A break? There is no break from this, Graham." There's no break from being cast as the villain in someone else's fairy tale. No break from having your words twisted, your intentions questioned, your humanity erased. The Graham's smile had vanished. He looked directly at her now, his tone turning serious. I understand you're upset. But this show isn't the place for personal grievances. This has always been a space to celebrate our guests, your work, your accomplishments. Celebrate. Her voice cracked, the emotion finally breaching the surface. How am I supposed to celebrate when every attempt to move forward gets dragged back into the trauma? When every interview turns into another interrogation about people who made my life hell? Graham's patience was visibly fraying. Meghan, he said carefully, I'm going to ask you one more time. Please sit down so we can continue this conversation constructively. Constructively. Meghan shook her head. You want constructive. Fine, here it is. Stop asking me to defend the indefensible. Stop asking me to smile through pain. And stop expecting me to protect people who never protected me. Silence. Just the faint hum of the studio lights. Graham, the master of charm and control, looked out of his depth, like a pilot flying into a storm he hadn't seen on the radar. I think, he began, choosing his words with care. We need to end this interview. But Meghan wasn't done. Oh, now you want to end it, she said, standing tall. Now that I'm finally telling the truth, now that I'm speaking without a filter, it's too much. The audience was spellbound. Some looked nervous. Others were glued to the confrontation unfolding live. Graham took a deep breath, but his voice was firmer now. Meghan, he said, that trademark Irish lilt sharper than usual. This is my show. I decide the tone and the topics. If you can't respect that, we have a serious problem. Meghan's eyes flashed. There it is, your show, your control. The moment I stop playing along, suddenly it's all about shutting me down. This isn't about control, Graham replied. It's about professionalism. Our viewers tune in to be entertained, not to witness a public therapy session. Therapy. Her voice rose. You think this is therapy? This is survival. Graham, this is me refusing to be silenced again. Not here, not now. Graham looked toward his producers. But even they were frozen, eyes wide, unsure how to handle what was quickly becoming uncontainable. He tried once more, the diplomat struggling against the tide. Look, I understand you've been through a lot, and I don't mean to minimize that. But there are appropriate forums for these conversations. This isn't it. Meghan let out a bitter breath. You mean forums where I can be managed? Where someone gets to edit my truth? Where I'm told what's safe to say? No, Graham. This is exactly the right place. Because people are finally listening. Graham's patience snapped. Meghan, sit down now. Or I'll have to ask you to leave. She didn't flinch. There it is, she pointed at him. The ultimatum. Do what you're told or get out. Sound familiar? That's how they worked. Obey or disappear. This isn't about obedience. Graham fired back. It's about respect. For the audience, for the show, for the guests waiting backstage. The world doesn't revolve around your personal drama. Personal drama? Her voice cracked. You think being cut off from your family is drama? You think spiraling into depression, being isolated, being gaslit by a system that only protects itself, that's drama? Graham stepped forward, his tone clipped and final. I think you're having a breakdown. On live television. And it needs to stop now. The air froze. The crowd stopped breathing. Meghan stared at him, eyes burning, chest rising and falling in sharp, steady defiance. A breakdown, she whispered. Then louder. You think standing up for myself is a breakdown. You think refusing to play nice is a mental collapse. She stepped closer, the room leaning with her. Let me tell you what a breakdown really looks like, Graham. A breakdown, Meghan said slowly, her voice trembling but resolute, is what happens when everyone around you tells you your reality isn't real. Meghan, please. Graham tried, but she was already moving. She rose from the red sofa like something had snapped inside her, pacing now, restless, unraveling. Her movements were sharp, animalistic, like a cage figure who'd finally stopped pretending to be fine. No. You wanted my experience. She turned sharply to face him. Let me give you my experience. Her voice gathered weight with each sentence. Let me tell you what it's like to be told you're imagining things when you're not. To be isolated, and then blamed for being alone. To be labeled difficult, just because you're trying to survive in a place that breaks people down for sport. Graham's composure slipped. He signaled, subtly at first, then frantically, to the producers. This wasn't just off script. It was out of control. We need to cut to commercial, he said aloud, voice elevated now, audible to the studio crew. Cut to commercial. Meghan spun toward him. Her laugh was hollow. Of course. When the truth becomes uncomfortable, cut to commercial. Make it disappear. Erase it. Just pretend none of it ever happened. She took a step closer. But I'm done being erased. The Graham's mask cracked completely. His voice snapped. The truth, he repeated, eyes narrowed. The truth is that you came on my show under false pretenses. You said you wanted to talk about your new projects, your future. Instead, you've hijacked my program to unload a monologue of personal grievances. Meghan's head tilted slightly, disbelief written across her face. False pretenses, she echoed. No, Graham. The false pretense is thinking any of us can have a normal conversation when the elephant in the room is always them. When every word I say gets dissected and weaponized before I've even said it. They stood now like dueling statues, the red sofa between them, a battlefield marker. Graham's signature charm was gone. His suit was rumpled, his hair disheveled, and the faint twitch in his jaw betrayed the pressure building inside. Meghan, stripped of her polished exterior, was raw now, vulnerable but fierce. You know what? Graham said, his voice low, deliberate. I've been doing this for decades. I've interviewed everyone, legends, leaders, icons. And I have never had to do this before. Do what? Meghan challenged, voice sharp. Graham looked her dead in the eye. Ask security to remove a guest from my show. The words hit like a punch. Meghan's face froze. Her breath caught. For the first time since the unraveling began, she looked genuinely stunned. You wouldn't dare, she said quietly. Try me, Graham replied, reaching for the emergency button under his desk. The audience gasped. This was no longer television. This was crisis, live. The red light of the camera blinked. The world was watching. Every breath, every gesture was immortalized. Meghan didn't flinch. She took a slow, deliberate step forward. Go ahead, she said, her voice steady. Call security. Prove my point. Show everyone what happens the moment a woman refuses to be polite about her pain. Show them that when we stop being silent, the solution is to physically remove us. The Graham's finger hovered over the button. He knew, pressing it might protect his show. But it might also destroy his legacy. You think this is about silencing women, he said, voice tight with restrained fury. This is about professionalism, about respecting the format of a show that's given thousands of people the chance to share their stories, without turning it into a spectacle. Respecting the format. Meghan stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper, but cutting like a blade. The format that expects me to smile while being asked about the worst years of my life. The format that demands I be grateful for being chewed up and spit out. That format. Graham clenched his jaw. The format that gave you this platform. That you agreed to when you accepted the invitation. I agreed to be interviewed. She shot back, not interrogated. I agreed to promote my work, not defend my existence. They stood face to face now, no longer host and guest, but two people each clinging to their truth, their platform, their dignity. The silence that followed was the loudest moment of all. The world was still watching, and nobody knew what would happen next. They were locked in a battle of wills that had long since stopped being about the show. It had become something else, raw, unscripted, electric. Graham's producers were frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, eyes darting across control boards, but no one had a playbook for this. Then, unexpectedly, Graham's voice shifted. "You know what?" he said quietly. "You're right." But Meghan blinked. That wasn't the next move she was bracing for. "What?" "You're right," he repeated, his hand retreating from the emergency button beneath his desk. "This format, this whole setup, it's designed to keep things light, to make people comfortable. Maybe that's the problem." The audience stirred. You could feel the air change. Meghan's expression softened, but only for a second. She looked wary now, uncertain. "What are you saying?" Graham stepped out from behind his desk and slowly approached, walking around the iconic red sofa. "I'm saying, maybe the real issue isn't that you're being difficult. Maybe the issue is that we've all become so used to surface level conversations that we don't know what to do when someone shows us real pain." "Don't," Meghan said instantly, her voice sharp, stepping back. "Don't psychoanalyze me. Don't turn this into a redemption arc for you." "I'm not trying to make this about me," Graham said, stopping in his tracks. "I'm trying to understand why someone would come on my show and burn it down." Meghan's mouth tightened. "Because I'm done being polite about the people who destroyed me." That sounds like pain to me," Graham said softly. Meghan flinched. "This isn't about pain," she snapped, though her voice cracked at the edge. "This is about truth, about refusing to let them rewrite what happened to me." "It can be both," Graham replied. "You can speak the truth and still be in pain. You can be absolutely right about what happened to you and still be handling it in a way that hurts you." The words hit like a slow, quiet blow. Meghan's posture wavered. For a moment, the fire in her seemed to dim. The room watched as her mask slipped, revealing something far more fragile underneath. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You don't know what it's like to have your story stolen, to have people decide for you what your life was." "You're right," Graham said honestly. "I don't understand that, but I do understand people. And what I see right now is someone who's been hurt so badly, she's forgotten how to speak without swinging." "I'm not attacking you," Meghan said, but there was no fire left in it. "Aren't you?" Graham asked gently. "Because it feels like you came here ready to fight someone. And I was the one who happened to be sitting across from you." Meghan stared at him, breathing hard. The studio was silent. Only the quiet hum of the lights and cameras filled the space. "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe I did come looking for a fight." "Why?" Graham asked, his voice lower now, like he was asking as a friend. Meghan's voice broke. "Because I'm tired. I'm tired of smiling through cruelty. Tired of being diplomatic about betrayal. Tired of protecting people who watched me drown and did nothing." There it was, the full weight of her heartbreak. Some audience members wiped their eyes. Others simply watched, frozen, unsure of what they were even witnessing anymore. "I get that," Graham said. "But setting fire to this stage isn't going to fix what they did to you. Blaming me doesn't rewrite your past." "Then what does?" Meghan asked, her voice shaking. "What actually changes it? What makes people see what really happened?" Graham paused. For once, he didn't have a rehearsed line. "Maybe start by not assuming every question is an attack," he said quietly. "Maybe start by recognizing that most people, like me, are just trying to do their jobs, not destroy your life." Meghan's voice dropped to a whisper. "But what if I can't tell the difference anymore?" Silence. Then Graham looked at her, not with judgment, but with something closer to compassion. "Then maybe it's time to step back," he said. "Time to stop and heal before you try to tell your story. Because right now, it's all bleeding out." Meghan shook her head. "I can't step back. If I step back, they win. If I stay quiet, they control the narrative. Again. They already did," Graham said gently. And coming in here swinging only makes it worse. Right now, you don't look like someone reclaiming the story. You look like someone unraveling. The words stung. She flinched. I'm not unstable, she whispered. Maybe not. Graham agreed. But tonight, you're acting like you are. And that's what people will remember. Not the truth you're trying to tell, but how you told it. Meghan slowly looked around. The lights, the cameras, the quiet, stunned audience. She saw it now. The wreckage. I ruined this. Didn't I? She asked, barely audible. Graham sighed. You've certainly made it complicated. Meghan reached for her purse, eyes brimming. I should go. She started to walk. Meghan, Graham called after her. She stopped but didn't turn around. For what it's worth, he said. I believe you. I believe they hurt you. I believe you're in pain. I just wish you'd found a better way to say it. Her voice floated back without turning. There is no better way. There's no elegant way to survive a system built to break you. Maybe not, Graham said. But there are ways to heal. Tonight. This isn't one of them. She turned slowly, her face no longer angry, just tired. You're kicking me off your show? No, Graham said. I'm giving you a chance to leave with your dignity intact. Because if you stay, this gets worse for both of us. She nodded, eyes glistening. You're right, she paused.
I'm sorry, Graham.
I didn't come here planning to torch the room. I didn't know how else to be heard. I'm sorry, too, he replied. I'm sorry they made you feel like this was your only option. As Meghan walked off the set, the audience sat in reverent silence. Graham stood alone, drained, his posture slumped ever so slightly. He faced the camera, composed himself, then spoke, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break. The red light on the camera dimmed. The studio fell into a hush. But what had just happened couldn't be erased. Not by a break, not by an edit, not by PR. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was the moment the curtain dropped. So, what do you think drove Meghan to this breaking point? Was this a justified outburst? Or a line crossed that can't be undone? Let's talk in the comments.